I think also to find what you love, and then it's not like work. I mean, for me, it's like a puzzle, and I like to it's a challenge. It's like you have to find all the pieces, which sometimes they're people, sometimes they're fact. You have to find all of those things, the pieces to the puzzle, to put them together, and it's awesome when you have something to show for all of that work. So, but find what you love doing and ask questions and learn even more.
Welcome to Becoming the GC, the podcast that dives deep into the journeys of general counsels and chief legal officers, uncovering the insights and strategies that help define their success. Hosted by Joe Schul, founder of Inside Counsel Academy. We share real-life stories and practical advice from successful GCs, guiding you on your journey to the top. Tune in and discover what it takes to become the exceptional legal leader your organization needs.
My guest today is Margaret Howell. She's a general counsel in the fertility space, and today she shares her professional story, which overlaps with mine for several years when she joined our team at DaVita. She also shares her passion outside of work, which blew me away, something that is next level in terms of requiring grit and determination. Here's Margaret's bio. Margaret Howell has been an in-house counsel for over 20 years, with the last decade as a general counsel in the ever-evolving fields of IVF and women's health, working for publicly traded companies and several private equity groups. She honed her corporate healthcare and compliance skills over 8 years as group general counsel with DaVita, and then entered the IVF arena with a management services organization that supported the largest network of fertility clinics in the U.S. As a result of that work, she became general counsel of Generate Life Sciences, and which owned the largest donor egg bank, sperm bank, and newborn stem cell preservation company in the U.S. As a member of the executive team, she helped expand the business internationally and position the company for a significant transaction, which resulted when they were successfully sold for $1.6 billion. Recently, Margaret's been advising entities that are interested in entering or expanding into IVF and women's healthcare businesses or expanding into the U.S. We'll hear all about that and more on today's show. Margaret, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. So thanks for inviting me.
It's so great to be reconnected with you after all these years. We did work together at DaVita, and we're going to talk about that. But I want to go back further in time, even before you and I knew each other. What inspired you to pursue a career in law?
I think it was out of familial necessity for me. My family was very conservative and I think very naive. And both my parents were teachers, and my mother had left school one day and was going back into the school well after hours, and she was hit over the head by a kid who had a brick who was trying to get into the school to for a drug deal. And she was seriously injured. And afterwards, we were like, well, and I was a kid, like, how do you take care of this? And my mom was like, oh, the school has a lawyer. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. So lo and behold, no surprise to those of us who are on this call, but at the time it was a big surprise to my family. The lawyer took care of the school and not my mom. So it's like, somebody in the family has got to take care of my family and not be so naive. So it's planted in my head pretty early on.
That is unbelievable. So this front and center, right in your own family, feeling that you could impact justice in the future for people like your mom. And so that brought you to law school.
Yeah.
Did you go
Yeah.
straight
I was like,
from undergrad? Did you go
so,
straight?
no, actually I didn't, because like I said, my parents are both teachers. So there was the paying for law school
Yeah.
that interfered. And so, yeah, I got my BS in business, and then I went into business. So I was a publisher sales representative for Prentice Hall for 4 years when I realized that it had taken me 4 years to pay for 1 year of law school. This was not going to work. So, so I incurred some debt and
Right.
worked through law school. And so, yeah, that was my path. But that also helped me understand business.
Right, exactly. Yeah, saving for 12 years to go to law school would definitely have been a long path. So okay, great. And did you enjoy law school? How'd you find that
Yeah, I
experience?
yeah, I did. I mean, I love learning, and I guess that comes from, parents being teachers. I love learning and I hope to always be learning and, my mom and I used to say, when I'm done learning, I'm done. So, yeah, I like learning and growing and, expanding horizons, and that was law school.
What kind of teachers were your parents?
So, dad taught history, and this is back in the day when the history teacher was also the coach of all things, basketball, baseball, football, everything. And my mom taught sciences and home economics, and the school set them up so that because he was the high school, he was the coach, they had her be the cheerleading sponsor.
Gosh, between the two of them, they had everything covered, right?
I got
And
quite the education at home.
and what was your favorite subject in school?
It wasn't math. So I like foreign languages. I like Spanish, even though my Spanish is horrible now.
Okay, yeah, so language and okay, so then after law school, what are you gonna do?
So I knew I wanted to be a corporate lawyer, because of my business background, and everybody said you can't go straight in. So I went to work for the firm that I had been working for when I was in law school, and got to do corporate, business work there. Also, a little bit of litigation to find out that I didn't want to do that. But yeah, I did that for 4 years, and everybody said, "It's gonna be 7 years before you can go in-house." So just, like, be prepared to spend your 7 years. I'm like, "I'd rather do it a little faster than that."
Okay, so after 4 years, you went in-house, which I mean isn't, nowadays isn't uncommon at all. And so how did you get your first in-house job?
Not the way you would expect. So so I was married at that time and, living in North Carolina. I had taken and passed the North Carolina and South Carolina bars simultaneously, and then my husband was from California, and we moved, in his case, back to California with an 18-month commitment, and didn't know we were gonna move back, and I was gonna go to the same firm. And, you can't use a North Carolina or South Carolina license in California.
Mhm.
So I did due diligence for, Edison when they were selling or refinancing, I can't remember, the, San Onofre nuclear generating station.
Oh, yeah.
So I read all of the contracts and summarized those, a job that would be done by AI today. But but that was my
Not as well, but yes. And I love AI,
with
but
a lot of supervision. But yeah, that was my first, like, foray into corporate work, and then after that was done, I think I told you I'd put myself through law school doing, real estate work for this firm. So, there happened to be a company that made, vitamins and over-the-counter, drugs in, El Segundo that where they were opening a you just can't make this stuff up. They were opening up a plant in South Carolina. So they needed a South Carolina lawyer who understood South Carolina real estate to help them with this,
what
fee in
were the
lieu of
chances?
taxes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was that your first in-house job then?
It was. Yes.
Okay, yeah, and then did we hire you at DaVita from there?
You did. Yes, thank you very much.
And what attracted you to DaVita?
Oh, yeah, it was real healthcare, going from I mean, I learned a lot, learned about FDA from and DEA from the vitamin and over-the-counter drug company, but, I mean, I learned a ton about compliance and, it was yeah, DaVita was very attractive as, like, a really good training ground, and there was you, of course. I mean, I remember, when I met you and I was like, "I really, really respect this guy. He is buttoned up." And I
Oh,
I yeah, I wanted to learn from you personally, so
thank you. We had created the group general counsel positions, right? And you filled
yes,
one of those. I think
yes,
we may have had 5, and
yes,
I
we did,
think
yeah.
every one of those 5 people have gone on to be GCs.
I'm not surprised. So, yeah, it was a really good training. I mean, it was like a mini GC for your fifth of the country.
Totally, and I tell people who want to become a GC that look for one of those jobs because you are the GC of your business unit, of your geography, however the company is structured. Look for an opportunity to be the go-to person, the first call attorney for some business leader and
Yeah,
some management team, right? And
totally
that's what
agree.
that was. What did you learn in that job that helped you then become a full GC in the future?
Yeah, it is communication with your client, getting to know your client, knowing when to reach out to, the experts, and that's one of the benefits of that group general counsel position is you had people to help you in the background. Like you need to identify what the problem is and get it to the right person. So when you have an HR issue, you don't have to deal with the HR issue. You have to get it to the labor and employment lawyer. And so you build relationships with those people who are also DaVita in-house lawyers, but
Yeah.
subject matter experts. So it was issue identification and client communication and fitting the pieces together.
Yeah, much like you would, as a GC, engage outside counsel, except in that case, it was sourced from the talent we had within. But you,
Exactly.
as the GC, the group GC in that case, the thing that I loved about it, and you certainly did this, was you stay involved as the client's primary point of contact lawyer, and you're using that expertise of the labor and employment person, et cetera, to partner with them, but you're not just handing it off.
Right, and
Yeah.
I learned, like, mergers and acquisitions from that also by remaining in that context and getting to know what the business people needed and communicating that with the attorneys who did the M&A transactions and with the business development team.
Great. All good things come to an end. And so at some point you left DaVita. It was after I had already left. And that brought you into a new space. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that's when I went into, the fertility arena. So I there were several people from DaVita who went there, people I respected and had learned from. And so I had been talking to them. I was like, "Oh, that's a really interesting field, but, I don't really know anything about it. It's
Yeah.
not really, my area of expertise." But, starting to talk to them and just it's a fascinating subject matter that once I started to delve into it, I was really, really interested. And then, I mean, just the science around it is incredible, and the patient population is really inspiring and end of the day makes you feel great, like you've made a huge difference in a family. So
Great. Well, yeah. And tell me about the legal department that you joined when you made the switch.
so it was small. It was private equity owned. And there was a general counsel who had a lot of international experience. He had I think his BS was in Mandarin from Harvard, and his JD was also from Harvard. So super wicked smart guy, and he very much wanted to expand the business. So he did half M&A and half GC, and so I was responsible. The company was based in New York, and they wanted to have somebody in California with a California license to support the West Coast operations while he was growing the company. So then he hired another. There was another lawyer who had been in IVF, and I learned a ton from her. So I learned, more business aspects and certainly the international aspects from him. And I learned IVF from her, and she was just a wealth of information and welcomed me into IVF and taught me about risk and things that I would have.
Yeah. What were some of the things that you had to deal with that were, totally new to you? What are some of the legal challenges that you saw?
Well, there are things that you just can't make up. So in the world of IVF, I mean, that's the thing with families, is people are different. And back in the day, I mean, things, thank goodness for technology, there are less mistakes that happen in IVF now, but there are things that have been, it hits the news when things go wrong, they go really, really wrong. And so, there are mistakes that happen, fortunately, less frequently, but, there are also disputes over, who owns an embryo, is this life, is it property? So those were things that I could not have anticipated, and it really helped to have, this, expert, subject matter expert
Right.
lawyer, guiding me, and some things you just kinda have to, learn the hard way because you can't make that stuff up.
Yeah, and it's state by state, right? I mean,
Yes.
yeah, very much state by state.
And there's some unusual, how they say bad facts make bad law? There have been some unusual family fact patterns in a certain, different states that have resulted in some bizarre laws. And so it is difficult to know what those are, and difficult to stay up with all, especially, we've had a lot of changes in, state laws, and it is difficult to stay on top of that.
Yeah, difficult to predict what might happen in a with a certain fact pattern depending on where you are, and it's not heavily regulated in some sort of centralized way.
Yeah, I think people, I mean, it's regulated by, state medical boards. So it's and depending on what the practice does, there is FDA, involvement. So there are, and some states, New York is highly, highly regulated. Some states are not very regulated, other than via the medical board.
Yeah,
So it's a complex web of legislation and case law.
fascinating, right? A lawyer's a dream or nightmare or both, right? Depending on the
Depends on
day.
the situation, yeah. But it's also
Exactly.
really cool, and, like, from a, I mean, I always say, you need to get to know your client. It's a fascinating, fascinating client. Just some of the things, like at DaVita, we did Reality 101, and so DaVitians took that concept there, and my Reality 101 in IVF was fascinating. I mean, how many people get to see life created,
Yeah, yeah,
see an
exactly.
embryo.
Wow. That'll focus your attention. I mean, it's humbling and, like, awe-inspiring all at the same time. Reality 101 for people listening was DaVita's program, and they, may very well still have it. It's a great program where everybody, I think, certainly every executive, every lawyer, et cetera, who, worked there was, required to spend a week working in a dialysis clinic in a sort of a assistant to the patient care technician job. So we had to, set up the dialysis machines. And I mean, talk about really focusing your attention, because you're new to this, you're trying to figure it out. It's complicated. Everything's moving fast, and you're actually, working. Well, of course, you have oversight from a patient care technician to make sure you're not going to make a big mistake, but it felt very intense. Like, you want to get everything perfect. And yet it's hard to do, even if you're really smart, because you haven't been in this environment before. And it really gave an appreciation for the frontline folks who are doing that every day, and know exactly what to do. Anyway, that really stuck with me.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's a game changer. Yeah.
totally, totally gives you a lot of insight into what it really means, to provide those services to the patients. So, okay, so tell me about your transition then to this would be to you're the GC job.
Yeah, so, it's, who and talking to people, and I had a friend from my first in-house job who, we just stayed in touch, and she happened to be running with a woman who turned out to be the president of California Cryobank at that point. And they're just talking about, she knew she was a lawyer, and she's like, "Hey, our company's big enough now, we need our own lawyer." And she's like, "I happen to know someone who is an IVF lawyer." She's like, "Wait a minute, let me understand. This is somebody who has, IVF knowledge, who has corporate knowledge, who has worked with private equity groups before. Like, this is kismet."
You've been training for this your whole life.
Exactly.
Okay. So you slotted in there. This was a couple years before the pandemic.
Yes.
And yeah, so take us through that time period.
Yeah. I'll tell you, like, in the pre-pandemic
Yeah.
or yeah.
Yeah. Start there. Yep.
So it was really cool because we were, like I said, the president of the company said, it's time for us to have our own GC. The reason why they needed a GC is they were, as I said, private equity owned. They were combining three different entities. So California Cryobank, Donor Egg Bank, and CBR, Cord Blood Registry. So the private equity group was putting those together under the Generate Life Sciences umbrella and creating one large company. That's a lot of integration. And it's, three totally different entities, even though they're all IVF like ancillary companies. It means people have been maintaining contracts differently. The legal entities are different. Management systems, the personnel, the personality of the companies, totally different. So it's fascinating to be part of that executive team to, bring those together with a goal of, everybody knew that, the goal is to flip the company in 3 to 5 years. And that means, for the lawyer, identifying the risk, cleaning it up, helping, make the company, more attractive to the next bidder.
What were some of the challenges you faced in that role?
Finding contracts, and getting the right team on board from a legal standpoint. One of the things that I didn't have to deal with that I think some lawyers do is I didn't feel like I had to justify the need to have a general counsel there.
Mhm.
Everybody was, thankful to have in-house counsel, and they did invite me to meetings. I think, sometimes, general counsel have trouble, getting into the business meetings. I'll sometimes now ask, I'm like, "Hey, I know you don't want to spend the time to tell me about the details of this transaction. So why don't I just attend the meeting and I can give you a shortcut there."
Right. Here for yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, getting the it was a lot of it was integration of the business and just identifying what the risks were.
Mhm. Okay. Now take us to how the, pandemic impacted things.
Yeah. So I had been working from home. Like I said, the first IVF company I worked for was based out of New York.
Mhm.
So I was, early on one of the people to work from home, but I prefer to be in the office. And, that was one of the things that was really important to the CEO of Generate Life Sciences was that everybody would be there. And, before the pandemic, in the pandemic, obviously it's not an option. And so it was, helping people learn how to work from home. And one of the things that I did, and I'm really glad that I did, was not staying in my lane. So like with COVID, all kinds of new regulations, especially in California, like figuring out what applied to you, what you could do, what you should do,
What
helping
you
to
can't do, right?
yeah,
I mean,
yes, yeah,
the
yeah.
things were coming down, every day there was something new.
Absolutely, and everybody's trying to figure these things out, and so, like, with our HR team, I raised my hand, I'm like, "I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna dig into these," and I had a wonderful paralegal who would just, like, jumped on it with me, and we're like, "We're gonna figure this out. We're gonna come up with a spreadsheet," and, we did way more paperwork, for, like, individual employees that we should have done, but, we helped to figure out, how it was best for the company, which employees, it made sense to retain, which ones it made sense to have work part-time and, just trying to do, the best for everybody. And that was, the leadership of a really good CEO, and with us doing the grunt work, just trying to figure things out as they change. But I was really glad to not say, not my job, not my
Right.
no.
Yeah, love that. Love that. And so you had been working remotely during that time with the prior company. Were you using what I think before the pandemic we called it video conferencing, which you know, were you using Zoom or was it mostly speakerphone when you'd be coming into the room?
Unfortunately, it was a lot of speakerphone, and that's I
Yeah.
I always look for a silver lining, and so I think that's one of the very few silver linings of COVID was Zoom, so I think
Yeah,
now all of a sudden
right.
you get to see people, and I would have, because I had conference calls with outside counsel, big firms. I know they didn't want you to see them at anything less than their best, and so they would have a lot of conference calls, and I called them on. I was like, no, I need to read body language. I
Yep.
communicate
Yep.
better. I communicate with my hands a lot, and I need to see your eyes. I need to see how you're, responding to what I'm saying. And so as much as they hated it, they would get on Zoom
They
calls.
did. I found that Big Law was kind of the last to get with the program
Absolutely.
on
Yeah.
video, and even after people were back in the office, but so much of the client interface was online, I can remember, doing calls with people where they're sitting at the other end of a long conference room. You can't even sit, they're like tiny. This is how
Like,
it's
okay,
gonna work.
you're technically on Zoom, but you're defeating the purpose.
Right, exactly.
But I also found that you get to know, people's personality, and, like, I mean, I don't blur unless I have to, unless I have a real mess in the background. I don't blur my background because I think that you get to know people. I want to hear somebody's dog barking in the background, because then that's something that we can connect over. And, I think it's great when, especially being in IVF, I think it's great when people's kids, come up
Right.
behind them. It's like, that's your personality, that's who you are.
Yeah, it's part of the whole human connection and all of that. So, okay, so then what happens?
So then we actually started on the transaction that I was brought there for. It was we knew that we were gonna sell the company, and it was a fascinating experience. We had, great partners and GI partners, and just trying to figure out what the next steps were. My CEO looked at me one day and he said, you and I are working ourselves out of a job, right? Yeah. But yeah, it was a great experience, and one that I definitely do want to repeat when I find the right company again. But it was a great experience to go through building a company, integrating a company, knowing that you were going to show it off and that is how I felt about it. I did feel like we were showing off the company, because I was very proud of what it was when I came into it, that it was built by really well respected founders. And I think as people are looking for a general counsel position, you need to know that you can have faith in what the founders built, and you can be proud of that and not have to worry about some things popping up, later on in the news that are a huge embarrassment. It's like, I know the founders and respect them, and I did feel like we were, showing the company off to potential suitors, and it was a really good learning experience of different private equity going through big due diligence, and it helped a ton to have gathered all of those contracts and to be able to, like, hand them over. We chose Contract Safe to as the repository for all of our contracts, and had gathered them, and it made due diligence so easy to be able to give access to certain types of contracts. When a potential buyer was interested and they were asking questions, we could just flip the switch on, which types of contracts answered their
Yeah.
questions
Yeah.
and run AI searches to say, where do you have non-competes and, do searches by state. And I know that that impressed our private equity owners and the potential buyers.
Yeah. And so you would give the thumbs up to Contract Safe. That's good.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm always looking for like what the best repositories are because they
yeah,
have
yeah,
strengths and weaknesses.
yeah, it was actually, I think that there's probably video of my paralegal and me, touting their services years ago. But yeah, they were great, and, especially for a small company that wanted to grow, they gave us, what we needed, so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so critical. I mean, there's two, at least two reasons that stick out in my head, but there's a third now. I'm thinking because to have the contracts organized in that way, number one, this was my number three, makes it easier to operate day to day, right? Like you're not spending time looking for contracts or not knowing they exist and taking positions without having the full picture. But in a transaction context, if you're not prepared in that way, then
Mhm.
deal counsel is going to come in and have to do it at, like very
Yeah,
expensively,
very expensive.
right? And it won't be as well as it would have been done had it been done in house. And then three is just when the potential buyers see that, it says something to them about how the company's been managed, right?
Yeah.
That it's buttoned up, that it's organized, et cetera. Which that in and of itself, creates value.
May I add a number 4 to that, though?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
One of the other benefits is empowering your client. So and it
Mm,
also it also gets them, invested in providing the contracts. So, because it's, as a repository, it's searchable by them and you can give them access to the types of contracts that they need. And therefore, they can look at stuff. It takes some of the low level burden off of your legal team because they can look things up. If they want to know a term, it's already summarized. All they have to do is look at the summary sheet to see when it expires, if there's an automatic rollover. So it takes a lot of that burden off, but it also means that they are going to be quite happy to give you every contract that they have
right.
so that they have easy access to it. So yeah, I'm a big believer in that kind of organization.
Yeah, exactly. And also what springs from that, so we'll add another one to the list, is when you have that, the client is then taking contracts very seriously, right? This is something that it's like creates a sanctity around the contracting process, making sure legal's involved, making sure it's getting into the repository, making sure we're being thoughtful before we sign something about what our
Yes.
obligations and commitments are.
Knowing that other people are going to look at your work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not just going to be somewhere in your email. You clicked on it and nobody ever saw it again. So,
And then it goes in a drawer somewhere. Yeah.
yeah. Any other lessons learned from that experience of selling the company that,
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, asking questions. I would say I do have some like interview advice that came from it is, I was saying, show your personality. As I was interviewing for that position with the private equity group, the standard questions, what you would expect to be grilled by, private equity group. But after I had the position, I went out to breakfast with the managing director. And so we're talking, I'm much more casual at that point. So I was talking to him about, one of my personal interests, one of my hobbies that says a lot about my personality. And he looked at me, he was like, "Why did you not tell me this during the interview?" And I was kind of surprised. And then somebody else later on said, "Yeah, we had to convince him that you were scrappy, that
oh my goodness, do you want to share this hobby that,
you know what it is. I have you and Paul Dorsa to thank for Tour DaVita. So I am an
oh my
avid,
gosh, I
yeah,
remember that. Yes.
competitive ultra distance cyclist now. So, but
Wow.
but that personality, the reason why I bring that up is that fact that I hid because I thought that, oh, it's just a hobby. It would have told that person a lot about who I am, about, what a fighter I am, and that I'm, not there for like a, 9 to 5, thank you very much, go home job. Like, I work hard and, to his
Yeah.
point, I'm scrappy.
There's not right, nobody competing in ultra distance cycling who's not. Those things that you just mentioned, right? It's too hard to not be those things. Oh, that's super interesting. Tell me what you're up to now.
So now what I'm doing is, well, so after we sold the company, I did work on integration of that company into much larger publicly traded company. So it did the integration still in, IVF and ancillary services and IVF and women's healthcare products. So now what I'm doing is I intend to stay in the world of IVF. I'm also working in women's healthcare, which is very much related, and also regenerative medicine, which from my stem cell background is, still that same kind of healthcare. So I am a fractional general counsel for women's healthcare and IVF practices.
Excellent. That's great. And when you sort of look back at your career, which is, still going for sure, what advice would you give to a younger Margaret or anyone who's looking to, to follow a path like yours, to become a GC?
I would say learn everything you can and always ask questions. I think I was shy and I was like, what if I say something that's wrong? I don't want people to think I'm stupid because I don't know this. Like, just ask the question, I mean, maybe they laugh at you, but that's not so bad. But yeah, I would definitely say always be learning, do everything that you can. Like I did, with COVID. Do I have any great learnings from that now? Thank goodness, no. But it was, I did show value to the company and I learned some HR stuff because of that. But I would just say do everything that you can because you never know what you're going to end up using. Now, I mean, I surprise people, when I can, read a triple net lease, and that's because, that was how I put myself through law school. So you just never know, what you're gonna end up using. So, I would have never thought that I would have had any reason to deal with the DEA, but I did, so
Right. Oh, that's great. That's great advice. And it's so true. I mean, and so many people that I've interviewed for the show they come from all different backgrounds. And, the common thread is they went all in on what was in front of them at the time,
yeah,
right? Even if it was not necessarily going to be the thing that led them to where they wanted to be, but it's learning how to focus and engage and solve problems.
yeah. And I think also to find what you love, and then it's not like work. I mean, for me, it's like a puzzle, and I like to it's a challenge. It's like you have to find all the pieces, which sometimes they're people, sometimes they're fact. You have to find all of those things, the pieces to the puzzle, to put them together, and it's awesome when you have something to show for all of that work. So, but find what you love doing and ask questions and learn even more.
Right on. Can you share a little bit about your sporting pursuit? I'm
I
curious to see what you've been up to.
Oh, I've been a very, very busy girl. I've got some really cool jerseys to show for it. So, I guess you saw the 444 on my email. So,
Yeah. What does that stand?
it's 444 miles. We actually rode it on the Tour de Vita. It was the first one. It
The
was
Natchez Trace?
exactly. The Natchez Trace is 444 miles, and so I did that, solo race. I wanted to do in under 24 hours, but I'd done it twice, and I did it, I think, 26 hours and 45 minutes. I was off of the bike for
Wait, how
45
long? How long?
26 hours and 45 minutes. So, I was off of the bike for 45 minutes, total. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
What
And
you
so
wanna know my worst one? You wanna know my biggest failure?
yeah.
It's way more interesting than that. So I was doing the Hoodoo 500 and, solo, is very mountainous up in the, Zion and Bryce National
Oh,
Parks.
beautiful. Yeah.
I was at mile 498 and I crashed and got a very bad concussion, ended up in ER And my recollection of what happened is absolutely not what happened. So that was my biggest failure.
That's incredible. And so must have been about 2008 when we launched Tour DaVita.
I believe so.
Ken
Yeah.
Theory's idea, Paul Dorsa, and Chris Ripel and a couple others were the committee that planned that
I remember.
first
Yeah.
event. Um,
You convinced me that I could ride. I was a martial artist.
it was
You
it was an amazing event, but are you saying like before that you were not a cyclist?
I did not own a bike.
Wow.
Yeah.
That turned
Game
into
changer.
this. That's incredible.
Absolutely.
We did not ride 444 miles on the Natchez Trace. I can't even
It's a
imagine.
slippery slope,
I
it's
can't even
addictive.
imagine. I have, read about and a physical therapist who I work with actually goes on the Ride Across America, RAM. And,
Yeah, I've
and
done that. Yeah.
what?
I did that as an 8-person team.
You did?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Wow. Are you gonna do it again?
I don't know,
If you do it again, you have to let me know because it starts, like, down in Southern California, right? Where does it
Oceanside.
start?
Yeah,
Oceanside.
yeah,
Yeah, and goes to New Jersey?
yeah. I did well, it depends on the year. The year that I did it went to Virginia. Yeah, I had an 8-person team, and it was mixed. It was 4 guys and 4 women,
Mm.
and we finished in 6 days and I forget exactly how long, but yeah, it's full on racing, pedal to the metal every time you get on. It's like racing and thunder and lightning so yeah.
Up and
The
over the
flat
mountains?
yeah, over the mountains
Incredible.
and then, like, the headwinds of Kansas, yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, goodness. Wow, that's just incredible. What are you most looking
It's all
forward
your
to?
fault. You
Yeah, I
started
know, I can't believe that that sparked it.
totally.
I'm feeling very, very insecure about my own, failure to keep writing. It's so it takes commitment. It takes commitment because
Yeah,
it's
it shows that you're scrappy, you
yeah,
know?
for somebody slow like me, it's too time consuming, but if you're fast like you,
I don't believe you.
26 hours,
You're sandbagging.
man, that's great. What are you most looking forward to?
Yeah, the next gig. So, I go to I just got back from ASRM, American Society of Reproductive Medicine,
Yep,
which is another thing that I would recommend, people who want to be general counsel. It is an industry, it's a business, it's not a legal conference, but that's where you meet people. And so I see people that I know there, you stay connected with the people you get to up to speed on the latest things that are, coming into the arena. And I would highly recommend that people do that. So as a result of being there, and talking to people to find the next gig to see who's like big enough to have, their own general counsel and kind of do the same thing all over again. So I'm talking
right
to
on.
some really, really interesting people right now. I love what they do and it's inspiring.
I bet. That's great to hear. I think we'll leave it there.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate the honor of speaking with you and I'm so glad to reconnect with you. You're fantastic.
Thank you so much for joining us. My guest today was Margaret Howell. I want to talk about 3 of my biggest takeaways from the episode. First, the importance of having a good contract management system can't be overstated. Margaret's experience showed that being organized and having contracts readily accessible not only streamlines day-to-day operations, but also adds tremendous value when it comes time for due diligence and company transitions. Second, look for opportunities early in your in-house career where you can act as the mini general counsel of a business unit or function. It's these roles where you truly learn to be the go-to legal advisor, build strong relationships, and grow the practical skills that prepare you for broader GC responsibilities down the line. And finally, don't be afraid to show your authentic self, especially in interviews. Margaret's story about sharing her passion for ultra-distance cycling is a powerful reminder that personality and persistence count. Letting people see what drives you can make all the difference in setting yourself apart and earning their confidence. Okay, until next time, this is Joe Scholl. I'd love to connect with any in-house lawyers or outside lawyers serving in-house lawyers. who are interested in maximizing their potential. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn and let's start a conversation. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Becoming the GC. Whether you're preparing for the GC role or looking to sharpen your skills as a sitting general counsel, we hope this episode offered valuable insights and inspiration. If you enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your colleagues and friends. Explore more resources and join our community at InsideCounselAcademy.com. Please tune in next time for more insights and inspiring stories from successful legal leaders.